Okay, good morning. We starting the last chapter of Sefer Yehoshua, Bezrat Hashem, chapter 24. I think it's going to take at least 2 classes, but let's see how it goes. Anyway, actually, chapter 24 is quite similar to chapter 23. If you remember, chapter 23 was about the last gathering with Yehoshua. Yehoshua gathered all of Israel in unknown place, he doesn't say where, and give him his last speech, last talking. Very similar to the last speech of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Shmuel, of other leaders, something that should have been like the last words, the last chapter of Yehoshua. It says also Yehoshua was very old, and all the work was finished, and he gave them his like guidance, right? Of you should choose the good and distance yourself from the bad, and if you won't do that, you will be punished. Well, regular way to finish your job as a leader. We talked about the emphasis about the relationship with the Goyim in the land of Israel, that you should finish the work of taking the land of Israel, and should be very careful not to get married with the locals. So this is what we saw last chapter, and we would have expected that it would end, the book would end there. Maybe some last words about the death of Yehoshua, and he's buried, like we see in the end of chapter 24. But then chapter 24 starts all over again. Again, it says Yehoshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. First different, it says where. Second different, it doesn't say that Yehoshua was old. It just says that he gathered them. He summoned Israel's elders and commanders, magistrates and officers. So this is like identical to the former chapter, and they say, and they present themselves before God, which is thing that wasn't written in the last chapter, and it's also strange. What does it mean they present themselves before God? It was Yehoshua who was calling them, not God. And why, another question, why in Shechem? Why not in other place? And why doesn't he mention that Yehoshua was old again, that it was his last words? So, like you know, many times in the Tanakh, the Torah, in the Tanakh in generally, the chapters are not written according to the order, to the chronological order. It may be things that are later or sooner. For example, there are many that explain that this chapter didn't happen in the ends of the ends of the life of Yehoshua, but much earlier. For example, the name Shechem, it reminds us Ar Grizim and Ar Eval. If you remember, there was the moment when they did a covenant with the klalot and the brachot, the curses and the blessing. All this happened much earlier. No, Moshe ordered, Yehoshua did that. We read that during the book. Yeah, it's written in the beginning of the book. And again, also there's a question when it's really happened. We talked about that when we saw this chapter. It's actually not clear when it's happened, because if they already took Yericho, but not the rest of the land, how did they arrive to Shechem? Shechem is in the middle of the country. So what happened there? Why in Shechem and not in Shiloh? So there are some that explain that this chapter happened before, much before, but again, it's not a good answer, because in the end of this chapter, it says that after that, he sends them each one to his nachala, meaning it was after dividing the country.
Maybe they buried Yosef because they came from Israel.
Yeah, it says that they buried Yosef. Yeah, it says that Yosef, in the end of the chapter, is going to speak about the burying Yosef. It's going to speak about that. But again, the chronological time, when did it happen, it's not clear. And it can be located in different places during the book. It can be located in the beginning, when they did the moment of the covenant in Ar Grizim and Ar Eval. It can be after dividing the country, but before the end of the life of Yehoshua. And it can be also, even though like I said, it's a little bit hard to say, but it may be really happened after the former chapter, meaning he said his last word, and then he saw, you know what, I have another 5 years to live. Okay, let's gather again. I want to say you something else. Okay, so it's maybe like that, even though it makes less sense. If we say it's not the place, it's not the chronological order, so comes the question why it is the last chapter. I mean, we can say the things that don't happen according to the order of the time, but then we should have a reason why to change it. Why don't we write it in the right place? So we should ask why we can understand that it's for some reason it is the last chapter. And maybe it is the last chapter because of the topic of the chapter. What is the topic of the chapter? We're going to see. It's going to be about, again, making a covenant between Am Yisrael and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And that we can explain why it says, "Vayityatzvu lifnei Hashem." They presented themselves before God, not before Yehoshua. Because in that moment, they are going to do again the covenant. And here we have to ask, why again? We already have twice or 3 times that the covenant was done. First covenant was done in Mount Sinai. It says that they made an agreement with Hashem. It's Parashat Yitro, and after that, the end of Parashat Mishpatim. The second time there was a covenant in Arvot Moab, Parashat Nitzavim. And here the word return. It says here, Vayityatzvu lifnei Elohim. Parashat Nitzavim says, Atem Nitzavim hayom kulechem. And in Ma'amad Har Sinai it says, Vayityatzvu betachtit ha'ar. They present themselves, they stood, right? So we can see that the same word repeats many times in these 3 occasions, and we understand it's part of the events of making the covenant with Hashem. So the question is why it's needed again. Why do we need to make a covenant again after it already was done in Arvot Moab? Arvot Moab, it's the eastern side, the oriental side of the Yarden, before entering the land of Israel. In the last days of Moshe Rabbeinu, there is a covenant, and in Mount Sinai. So why we need 3 times? Why the 3rd time? So this is something that I leave open for now. But let's start reading the chapter itself. So he gathered everybody's coming, and Yehoshua starts his speech. And not like the former speech. The former speech spoke mainly about the life of Yehoshua itself. What's happened during my time as a leader? It was like a report of my time as a leader. I'm going to step down. Let's see what's happened. Hashem helped you that, you took the land of Israel, I divided the land between a few, Hashem helped you in the war, etc. Here it starts much earlier. It says, Vayomer Yehoshua el kol ha'am, then Yehoshua said to all the people, Ko amar Hashem Elokei Israel, thus said the Eternal, the God of Israel, Be'ever ha'na'ar yeshvu avotechem me'olam, terach avi Avraham va'avi Nachor va'yavdu Elohim achirim. I don't know, I know that Yitzchak already know, but I ask the rest of you, do you remember these words in Hebrew? Be'ever ha'na'ar yeshvu avotechem me'olam, terach avi Avraham va'avi Nachor. I give you a hint. You say that every year, twice. In the Haggadah of Pesach. The Haggadah of Pesach starts with these words. Let's see the translation. In olden times, your ancestors, Terach, father of Abraham and father of Nachor, lived beyond the Euphrates, the river, it says in Hebrew, and worshipped other gods. So he starts the history a long, long time ago, not in Avraham Avinu days, like we start last Shabbat in the parasha. It starts in the days of Nachor. And that's what we read in the Haggadah Shel Pesach. That's the way the Haggadah of Pesach starts. So this is a verse that we start at the Haggadah of Pesach. Terach avi Avraham. Yeah. Terach avi Avraham avi Nachor. From the times of Terach, the father of Avraham, or the father of Nachor. I think that also the father of Terach was named Nachor. Yeah. Anyway, Terach avi Avraham avi Nachor. Why we start so early? Why don't we start with Avraham? So about Haggadah Shel Pesach, the Gemara said that Haggadah Shel Pesach should start with bad things and continue to the good things. Right? So what are the bad things? What are the good things? There are 2 opinions in the Talmud. If you remember, we talked about it before Pesach in one of the classes. The Haggadah should start with the bad. Why it should start with a bad thing? Because from understanding the bad, you can understand the good. When you see when you came from, you can understand how good is that the place that you arrived to, right? So from the bad, you understand the good. So what is the bad that we should start? There are 2 opinions in the Talmud. One say you should start from Avadim Ainu leFaro b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves to Paro. That it's bad? Yeah, of course, being slave, it's not nice. especially if you avoid avodat parech, right? A work that break your soul. And if they killing your children, it's not nice. Okay, so this is the bad. We should start from the bad in order to understand the good. This is one opinion. The second opinion is that you should start here. בעבר הנהר ישבו אבותיכם מעולם תרח. This is a bad. Why is it bad? It's a spiritual bad, meaning you came from idolatry. And you could as easy as it to go in the way of Nahor. It says your ancestors were worshipping idolatry, like it says, and worshipped other gods. So that's what they did forever. I mean, it says is me'olam. Me'olam is translated as in olden times, but me'olam means that was they used to do for many, many generations. So for many generations, you came from a family of idolatry. And Terach was also worship other gods. And then there are two ways, the way of Abraham and the way of Nahor. Where did the way of Nahor took him? I mean, normal life. He had his life. We don't know exactly what's happened to his descendants, but he has family and he lives there and he stays in the other side of the river. And then there is the way of Abraham, the way of faith. And Abraham started this way. So this is a bad. You understand, you're starting from the idolatry and you could continue that, but then we see the good that comes from that, which is Abraham. So from understanding where he comes from, we can understand his achievement, the achievement of finding the way to Hashem, to the faith. And then it says, this depends in something else. They set, your ancestors set, in the Ever Na'ar, in the other side of the river. And then, but I took your ancestor Abraham from beyond the river. How do you read the name of this river? Euphrates? Euphrates. Nehar Perat. But again, it doesn't say here what river. It says from the river, the other side of the river. Anyway, it took Abraham from beyond the river and led him through the whole land of Canaan and multiplied his offspring. I gave him Yitzchak. So part of choosing the right way is going to the land of Israel, like we learned in the last parasha, Parashat Lech Lecha. Okay, so the choice of Abraham, the election of Abraham out of Terach depends on two things. First of all, his connection with Hashem. He doesn't walk as worship other gods. And second, the fact that he went to the land of Israel. And then Abraham, also, it's not the end of the way, because also Abraham has a lot of offspring, right? I multiplied his offspring. How many kids did Abraham have? He was without kids until the age of 90, but how many?
A lot of people, lots of
Yeah.
families.
No, the daughters of Torah. So we have Yitzchak, Ishmael, and another 6 children. Yeah, it was.
We don't know much.
It says in the Torah,
The end of the parasha.
the end of the parasha of our parasha, it speaks about the other children of Abraham, and he sends them away. It says that he had children and he sends them away. Meaning from all the offspring of Abraham, multiply his offspring, only one was chosen. Yitzchak, yes. So it was a process of election, not one time. It was a process of election. From Abraham, Yitzchak was elected, meaning it's could, even if you are son of Abraham, you can choose the right way. We can see why it's important after that in the chapter. And also, even though Ishmael is not mentioned here by his name, maybe because his mother wasn't Sarah, and then we go to Yitzchak, and Yitzchak has 2 children. Vayten Yitzchak et Yaakov et Esav, and to Yitzchak I gave Yaakov and Esav. I gave Esav the hill country of Seir as his possession, while Yaakov and his children went down to Egypt. So you can see that even for Yitzchak, it still didn't finish the process of election, of choosing the separating, distinguishing between those who are worship Hashem and those who are worship other gods. So Esau went to Ar Seir. He didn't go through the history of Israel, through Egypt. He doesn't have now the connection to the land of Israel. Like I said before, this is these 2 aspects that are important. the connection with Hashem through the Torah, and the connection with Hashem through Eretz Israel. So Esav received Ar Seir lareshet oto, his possession. He's living there, it's him, he's out of the story. It's the story of Yaakov continue. They went to Egypt. And then he started to speak. Until here, we see the process of election. And from now on, we see the process or the miracles and the generosity and the kindness of Hashem with Am Israel. Then I sent Moshe and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with the wonders that I wrote in their midst, after which I freed you. I freed your ancestors from Egypt, and you came to the sea. But the Egyptians pursued your ancestors to the Sea of Reeds with chariots and riders. You know this story? Yeah, so he's repeating the important events in the history of Am Israel until this moment. But it's interesting what he's mentioning and what he's not mentioning. So they say, they cried out to God and put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and Hashem brought the sea upon them, and it covered them. Your own eyes saw what I did to the Egyptians after you have lived a long time in the wilderness. After that, you had lived a long time in the wilderness. Another miracle, in the wilderness you could survive. What are we missing? What important event are we missing here? I just mentioned the next event, Matan Torah. It doesn't mention Matan Torah. He said, I took you out of Egypt, I brought you to the sea, I saved you in the sea, and then you were in the wilderness during many, many years. The Ma'amad al Sinai, giving the Torah, was 49 days after going out from 50 days after going out from Egypt. Why it doesn't mention here? And it's go directly to the last year, the year number 40. It doesn't speak about the other events in the desert. That is understandable. It doesn't speak about the sins right now, the sins of the spies, the sins of the golden calf, they were complaining. All this is not mentioned here, because it's not the issue. The topic is the kindness and the miracles that Hashem did to Am Israel. So he go directly to the last year. I brought you to the land of the Amorim, who lived beyond the Yarden. They gave battle to you, but I delivered them into your hands. I annihilated them for you, and you took possession of their land. So this is another thing that Hashem helped us. Thereupon Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, made ready to attack Israel. He sent for Bilam, son of Beor, to curse you. But I refused to listen to Bilam. This is another miracle. Why is it a miracle? Because usually Bilam had the power to know how to curse and to make damage to other people. And in this moment, Hashem didn't want to hear him. Not only he didn't want to hear him, he made him bless us. He had to bless you, and thus I saved you from him. Okay, so this is the stories about the desert. We read about the war with the Amorim in the other land of the other side of the Yarden, and then what's happened with Bilam. It doesn't mention, but there was another war with Midian. It doesn't mention. Okay, and then it says, then you crossed the Yarden, and you came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho and the Moraim, Perizim, Knaanim, Chittim, Gilgashim, Chivim, and Yevusim fought you, but I deliver them into your hands. So it looks like he says, here the translation again, it's not very accurate. He says the citizens of Jericho and the Amoraim. It doesn't say so, it's in Hebrew. He says the citizens of Jericho, which are the Amori, the Perizi, the Knaani, the Chiti, the Girgashi, the Chibu, the fought against you. And again, the question here, it's not what it's written in the beginning of the book. It doesn't speak about all these nations. It says the people of Jericho. It doesn't say what nations are there. But it looks from here that in Jericho were all the nations. So Rashi explained here that Jericho was, like we spoke in the beginning, it was the gate to the land of Israel, the entrance to the land of Israel. So each one of the nations in the land of Israel has their people. It was like united force of all the nations of Eretz Canaan were in Jericho. So all these people came and fought against you. So this was the last war of Yehoshua? No, but it doesn't mention any other war. And if you want to speak about the kindness and the miracles of Hashem, you could have mentioned, for example, the war against the kings of the south, when Hashem throw stones from the sky, and where he stops the sun in one place. There are other miracles. It doesn't mention any more of this.
Only one battle.
So yeah, another way to explain is, it says Yericho, and then the rest of the people, Aemori, Aprizi, Aknani, refers to the other wars that happened. Another option, this was said after the first war. Again, like we said before, we don't know exactly when this chapter was said. So we can say that this was in this moment. Again, it's not very, I don't think this is the right answer, because like I said before, in the end of this gathering, he sends them each one to his inheritance. So we understand it's after that. Anyway, we mention another answer later, why all these nations, not another answer, but another thing about this verse. And then it says, I sent a plague ahead of you. What is plague? It says in Hebrew, atzirah. Tzirah is, how do you say that in English? Swap. You know, these little flies that can beat you.
Like bee.
Like bee, but wasp. Tzirah in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, is wasp. And it says, I sent the wasp ahead of you, and it drove them out before you. The two, again, here it adds the word, just like the two Amorit kings, not by your sword or by your bow. So again, they added this word, just like, in order to resolve a problem. What? Hornet. Okay.
Yeah.
Hornet. Here we have another problem. The problem is, again, if you take out the word just like, it says the tzira, the hornet, drove out before you them, meaning the people of Yericho, and the two kings of the Amori. But the two kings of Amori were before that. We already mentioned them. We mentioned 2 verses ago about that. So we can add, like it says here. It didn't say that before, but all the wars was with the help of the tzira, of the hornet. But what does it mean, this tzira? It's not very clear. There are different explanations about that. Some goes according to the literal meaning. There was some magical creature, some kind of a fly that was coming with them to the war, and it was like spitting into the eyes of the enemies. They couldn't see anything, and then the Jews only came and killed everybody. So this is one explanation. Other explanation meaning some kind of divine help, meaning you are not, even though it looks like you are fighting alone, actually the one who help you is God. So it's like kind of an angel of a divine help, assistance in the war, which is like more rational explanation. Anyway, what he wants to here to emphasize is that all these wars happened with the help of Hashem. You didn't win this war alone. There is an interesting explanation here of the Malbim. It's not so good, well in the words, but it's interesting. It says, you see the nations that are mentioned here. It says Emori, Prizi, Knaani, Chiti, Girgashi, Chivi, Yevusi. 7 nations. Emori, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 nations. But one of these nations, it's a little bit strange, Girgashi. The Girgashi are mentioned in other places that they didn't fight against Am Israel, they went away. Before the fighting, before Yehoshua started to take the land of Israel, he sent to the inhabitants of the land, you have these options. You can go away, or you can fight and die. Fair options. That sounds similar to what's happening today. You can go to the south, or you can stay and fight and dead. So everybody stayed, apart from 3 nations. Because in the Torah, there are mentioned 10 nations, not 7. So 3 nations went away. One of the nations that went away was the Girgashi. So why it is mentioned here? So Malbim says that it says that they had intention to fight against Am Israel, but when they heard what happened to Malchei Amori, to the kings of the Amorim, that was defeated with the help of this tzira, then they ran away. So it says, הגרגשי, וישלח לפניכם את הצירה ותגייס אותם מפניכם, I sent the orange that drove them up the two kings, the two Amorite kings, and that's the reason that the Yehoshua went away. Again, it's not very well in the words, but it's interesting explanation. Anyway, the conclusion of all these words is, I have given you a land for which you did not labor, and towns that you did not build, and you have settled in them. You are enjoying vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. This is very similar to the words of Moshe Rabbeinu in Sefer Dvarim. He says almost the same words, that I'm going to give you towns that you didn't build, and vineyards that you didn't plant, etc., etc. So again, it's describing again the kindness of Hashem. And now, what are the conclusion of all of that? Now, therefore, revere God and render service with undivided loyalty. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve God. So he said to them, you should put away the gods that are between you. That you have. And the question here, did they have other gods? We read during the old book, and also we'll see that in the end, that during the days of Yehoshua, they didn't worship any idols. They were loyal to Hashem. So what is Yehoshua asking from them? To take away the gods that your ancestors were served beyond the river, meaning Terach, Avi Avram, Avi Nahor, like we said, that they used to worship other idols. What does it mean that you should take it away? Do they still have that? It's interesting that there are the same words almost in Sefer Bereshit, when Yaakov, after he killed the people of Shechem, again, not him, this is the son of Yaakov, killed the people of Shechem, it says that he told them the same word, take away the other gods that you have in between you. And we understand that apparently, during the war, they took like, how do you say, they took, when you take things of the enemy of the war, spoil, yeah. Apparently, inside the spoil, they took all the land of Israel with many nations, many towns, usually soldiers go to the fight, to the battle, and we take a siddur inside or tefillin or something, right? So they took their idols, or some taking the cross or whatever everybody believes. You want him near you in the battle, and then there is a spoil and a lot of other gods. So he said, these other gods, you treated them as spoil. Maybe you think, it's a nice thing to decorate the living room, something like that. No, you should take it away. This is a big dangerous. And this is when you have to choose between serving Hashem and serving the other gods. And now he said, well, you should take it away from you. And now he gives them an option, which looks very strange. Or, if you are lost to serve God, choose this day which ones you are going to serve. The gods that your ancestors served beyond the river, or those of Amorit in whose land you are settled, but I and my household will serve God. So he really offers them the option of leaving the Torah, leaving the faith, and go serve other gods. Said, you should choose today who you are going to choose, to serve God or to serve the other gods. Remember, Hashem helped you and did all that for you, but you should choose. Really, they have an option to choose other things? We'll answer that later. And then it says, in reply, the people declared, far be it from us to forsake the eternal and serve other gods. The right answer, right? The answer correctly. For it was the eternal our God. They got the message from Yehoshua. They understood and accept the message. It says, for it was the eternal our God who brought us, our ancestors, up from the land of Egypt and house of bondage, and who wrote those wondrous signs before our very eyes, and guarded us all along the way that we traveled, and among all the people through whose midst we passed. And then God drove out before us all the people, the Amorim, the inhabited of the country. We too will serve the eternal, who is our God. Okay, good answer. You got the message, he helped you, everything that you needed, so we choose to continue after Hashem. But Yehoshua insists, and he says to them, Yehoshua, however, said to the people, you will not be able to serve the eternal, who is a holy God, a jealous one. who will not forgive your transgressions and your sins. You're not going to be able to do that because, as really happened, if you forsake the eternal and serve alien gods, God will turn and deal harshly with you and make an end of you after having been gracious to you. Gracious to you. So he's saying to them, you're not able to do that. Are you sure? No. So the answer, but the people reply to Yehoshua, no, we will serve the eternal. So then Yehoshua accept. Thereupon Yehoshua said to the people, you are witness against yourself that you have by your own act chosen to serve the eternal. Yes, we are, the response. And again he says them the same words that Yaakov said to his son, then put away the alien gods that you have among you, and direct your hearts to the eternal, the God of Israel. And the people declared to Yehoshua, it is the eternal our God, whom we will serve, and whom we will obey. And I read that in Hebrew, ויאמר העם אל יהושע את השם אלוקינו נעבוד, ובקולו נשמע. Does it remind you something? It's almost the same word that the people said to Moshe Rabbeinu. נעשה ונשמע. We will serve and we will do, right? And we will hear. And also this order, we will do whatever you say, and we will hear after that. Okay? So it's the same words. Like I said before, it's also remind us the Mount Sinai, the event in the Kabbalah Torah, right? The event of Mount Sinai, of Kabbalah Torah. And it's the same word. It's again renewing the covenant with Hashem. And this question that we didn't answer yet, why it's needed. Anyway, it says, on that day at Shechem, Yehoshua made a covenant for the people, and he made a fixed rule for them. Vayasem lo chok u'mishpat b'Shechem. Chok u'mishpat, again, it's the same word that the Torah says, Sham sam lo chok u'mishpat v'sham nisau. It was before Ma'amad Har Sinai. Anyway, we had a question that we didn't answer. I will answer now one answer, and then after that, the next class, I will answer another question. I asked, is Yehoshua really giving them a chance to choose? Can they really now, they could have said, you know what, we prefer the gods of the Canaanim. We prefer to go back to Egypt. They really have a choice? And the first answer is not. It's like, you know, like a rhetoric question. After he said all of that, do you really want to serve Hashem? And also say, it's going to be hard, but he didn't really mean to give them a choice. It's like, you know, a parents want to go away from the super, and the child want to stay there. So, you know what, I'm going away. And you turn away and go away, and then you look if the child is coming, right? He's not really going to go, you know, he's going to go back for his child. It's just like threatening him, make him understand that he should choose to come with me. Okay, so it's not really that Yehoshua gives them a choice. He just says, do you mean it? Do you understand the meaning of the covenant? Do you understand the price, let's say, of this kindness of Hashem with you? It's hard. You're going to make mistakes, and he's going to be angry with you and going to punish you. But you should still choose this way. So this is the first explanation. According to that explanation, there wasn't really any moment that they had to choose between the options. There are other answers to that we're going to see without Hashem maybe next time. Let's continue now to finish the most of the at least the pshat, the literal meaning of the chapter. Yehoshua recorded all this in a book of divine instruction. What does it mean that he recorded that in the book of divine? What it says, ויכתוב יהושע את הדברים האלה, he wrote these things, בספר תורת אלוקים, in the book of the Torah of Hashem. What does it mean? There are three explanations for that I know. Two of the Talmud and one of Abarbanel, one of the Mefarshim. In the Talmud there are two opinions. One opinion, here it says, it speaks about the last 8 verses of the Torah. If you remember, we spoke about it several times. The last 8 verses of the Torah describe the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. Who wrote them if Moshe died? We can say that Moshe himself wrote him, and I died. You can write I died, right? Even though you are alive. So Moshe wrote that because Hashem told him to write it. Other opinion is that Yehoshua wrote these verses. Yehoshua wrote the last 8 verses in the Torah. So when it says here that Yehoshua wrote these things in the Sefer of Torah Elokim, in the Sefer of the Torah, meaning he wrote the last 8 verses of the Torah. This is one explanation. Other explanation, if you remember, there is a chapter that we say that it looks like it's written in almost the same word and the same style of the Torah. The chapter that speaks about the refugee cities, right? If you remember, after dividing the land of Israel, he named the cities of refugee when someone who killed by mistake should go there. And this chapter is written almost in the words of the Torah, and it also starts Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua lemor, the same way that usually it's the Torah, it's written with Moshe. So in this chapter it says that Yehoshua arrived almost to the level of writing the Torah, almost to the level of Moshe. So when it says these things, meaning that he wrote this chapter, that is the same as chapter of the Torah. And this is the two explanations. The Talmud, the Abarbanel gives another explanation. He says that actually, when it says that Yehoshua wrote the things on a book, meaning he wrote Sefer Yehoshua. The book of Yehoshua was written by Yehoshua in this moment, and he put like a Torah, like a Bible. And then Vaikach Even Gdola, and he took a great stone. Why stone? We remember, usually we do this covenant, this agreement, this declaration or commitment with this stone. It's like a monument of declaration. And so he took a great stone and set it up at the foot of the oak in the sacred precinct of God, Mikdash Hashem. So is there a temple? It says Mikdash Hashem, the temple of Hashem. Is there a temple in Shechem? No, there's no temple. There was never a temple in Shechem. So we can say maybe it was temporarily there when they took the ark. There are another answer. Again, we are going to give another answer to all this chapter next class. But now only the simple understanding. It took something like a monument, like something that would be like a remembrance of this covenant. And this was a stone that he put there, Tachata Allah. Allah, here it translates as oak, also remind us the words in Sefer Bereshit with Yaakov. Yaakov took the idols from them and buried it under the Allah, the same words, Tachata Allah, under the oak, under this tree. So also remind us what's happened there. And then Yehoshua said to all the people, see, this very stone shall be a witness against you, for it heard all the words that God spoke to us. Who heard? The stone. Can stone hear things? Well, so it can be understood, of course, symbolically, like Moshe Rabbeinu said, Azinu hashamayim v'adabera, listen the sky, that heaven that I'm going to speak. V'tishma haaretz imrei fi, and the land is going to hear what I said in the Parashat Azinu. What does it mean that the sky is here, or the land here, or the stone here? It's symbolically. Look, this is a sign of our agreement, of your commitment. Okay? Other explanation is that she heard by written on it. We saw that when he brought the stones from the river, when they entered to the land of Israel, he wrote the whole Torah on the stone. So this is what's meaning the stone heard, meaning the things are written on it. Okay? For it heard all the words that God spoke to us, it shall be a witness against you, lest you break faith with your God. And then Yehoshua then dismissed the people to their allotted portions. Like I said before, this verse shows us that this chapter was said after dividing the land, and then everybody can go back to his portion. Okay, and after these events, Yehoshua, son of Nun, the servant of God, died at the age of 110 years. 110, 10 years less than Moshe Rabbeinu, we spoke about that. But here, the title of Yehoshua is very interesting. Eved Hashem, the servant of God. The only one who was said about him these words is Moshe Rabbeinu. So in the end of his, if you remember, in the beginning of the book, in the chapter 1, it says that Yehoshua is Mesharet Moshe, the servant of Moshe, and Moshe is Eved Hashem, the servant of God. Now Yehoshua is upgraded to the level of Moshe again. We see again here, he wrote in the Torah. He made the pact with them, the covenant with them, like in the days of Moshe. He wrote everything like a witnesses, like a testimony. And then he also called in the same title of Moshe Rabbeinu. He is the servant of Moshe, of Hashem. Again, almost Moshe Rabbeinu. He is the servant of Hashem, but only 110 years. You know who else lived 110 years? Yosef. Yosef, it says in the end of Parashat Vayechi, lived 110 years. Yehoshua is from the tribe of Ephraim, which is the son of Yosef. In some way, he continued Yosef, right? He was a leader that Yosef was a leader who brought Am Israel to Egypt. Yehoshua is a leader who brought Am Israel to Eretz Israel. Okay, and then like it's closing the circle. We are going to see another closing circles here, and it says they buried him on his property at Timnat Serach in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. There are some midrashim about this verse. I don't want to get into that today. And then another compliment to Yehoshua, another praise to Yehoshua. And it says, Israel served God during the lifetime of Yehoshua and the lifetime of the elders who lived on after Yehoshua. So I think that the only leader that it says clearly that his influence continues in the next generation, I mean, it's not clearly, but it's what we sound here. It says they served God all the days of Yehoshua. It's no, I don't think that anyone else in the history of Am Israel can be said on him that during all his days, Am Israel served God. Even not Moshe Rabbeinu, that had Chet HaEgel, the golden calf. Yehoshua had problems during his time. We spoke about some of the problems of the sins. Achan that stole the part of the spoil, and we saw that they didn't took all the land of Israel. And there was some moments of crisis. But generally speaking, they served Hashem all the days of Yehoshua. Not only the days of Yehoshua, also the days of the elders after Yehoshua. Connecting the elders to Yehoshua, meaning that it's connected to him. The influence of Yehoshua continued in the next generation. It was, I think, one of the best times of Am Israel, when all of Am Israel served God during so many years. All the days of Yehoshua and all the days of the elders after Yehoshua, and who had experienced all the deeds that God had wrought for Israel. And then, like I said before, closing this circle, it says, the bones of Yosef, which the Israelim had brought up from Egypt, were buried at Shechem, in the piece of ground that Yaakov had bought for 100 keshita. There are 3 places in the land of Israel that says that were bought. What are the 3 places that were bought by us? First of them is Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Avraham Avinu bought it from Ephron HaChitti. The third one is Har HaBayit, Kerem Arvana Yevusi, that it says that David HaMelech bought this place from Arvana Yevusi. This is in Sefer Shmuel and Divrei Yamim, I think. Anyway, much later, and it says also that when Yaakov arrived to the land of Israel back from Haran, he bought a field near Shechem in Me'ah Keshita. It's some kind of a coin, of a currency, and it belongs to him. So these places, Shechem, Hebron, and Jerusalem, are more connected to Am Israel from the rest of the land of Israel, because it was bought by us. Not only Hashem gave us, we legally bought it. Anyway, Yaakov was buried there, and which had become a heritage of the Yosef. So Yosef, that started the journey to Egypt, he asked before he died, take my bones to the land of Israel. Moshe Rabbeinu it says in the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu started taking it to the land of Israel, but he didn't finish. The one who finished it was Am Israel. It says that Am Israel took it from Egypt. So now Mefarshim asked, Chachamim asked, who took the bones from Egypt? Moshe Rabbeinu. Why it says here that Am Israel took them? Because they ended the story. Moshe Rabbeinu started the mission, but they ended it. So why don't we say Moshe Rabbeinu and Am Israel? So they say the answer is En mitzvah nikret ela al shem gomra. The mitzvah is named after the one who finished it. If you start something you didn't finish, someone else is going to continue. The end is the important part. So that's the reason it's named after Bnei Israel and not after Moshe Rabbeinu. And the last verse of the Sefer, of the book, it says, Elazar, son of Aaron, also died, and they buried him on the hill of his son, Pinchas, which had been assigned to him in the hill country of Ephraim. So Elazar ben Aaron is a Kohen, tribe of Levi. He didn't get a part in the land of Israel, so he got part in the Har Ephraim. So here a question, another short question. It says that they buried him in the hill of his son. What does it mean, the hill of his son? His son got it from whom? From him. So it should have been his. I mean, we are talking about Elazar. His son is Pinchas. Elazar is buried in the hill of his son. It's not the heel of his son. It belongs to the family. It belongs to him first. What does it mean that it belongs to his son? So Hamim answers that.
Belongs to his son because he's dead.
Yeah, but it's like, for example, it says after Yehoshua, it says that it was buried in his portion because it was him. After that, it belongs to the son. So it looks like it belongs to his son and not to him. His son made him favor to bury him in his portion. So there are two explanations of that. First of all, that this land was given by Am Yisrael to Pinchas specifically. It wasn't go through his father. And the other explanation that Pinchas got this part from marriage. He got it from his wife. It wasn't belongs to his family. And we learn from him that if there is only daughter and there isn't a father, there isn't a son, so the nachala goes to the daughter. It's a little bit strange because in the first generation we said they cannot get married with other tribes, but maybe they got married before that. So it was before the prohibition to get married. There only was in the end. So Pinchas was already married to a woman from other tribe that didn't have brothers. She was from the Nachalat from the tribe of Ephraim. Her father died. She got this Nachala. It passed to her husband, and he was buried there. Anyway, the generation of giving the land to Am Yisrael, which was led by Yehoshua and Elazar, and its story, and this is our Sefer Yehoshua. So I just mentioned that for next time we are going to see another time this chapter, not read it, but explain some things. What we can see is that the main moment or the main topic of this chapter is the renewal of the covenant between Am Yisrael and Hashem. And the question, like we said before, why it was needed. And the other question that we ask, if it was really a free choice, they could choose in this moment to stop being Am Yisrael, stop being the nation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'ezrat Hashem next week. Okay? Boker Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you, Joe and Phil, for the rest.
Our pleasure.